Hi there, my name is Yuri Trices. I'm an economics major doing project consulting with data science, economics, and computer modeling. Today I'm talking about a text editor and giving a small demonstration. This will introduce you to the setup I'm using so that down the road you can look at any other tutorials I post and easily follow along. Also, if you don't currently have an editor and or you're interested in Emacs, here you can have a look at it and hopefully learn something. Uh, some of you will be advanced developers. This video is for beginners, but any advanced developers, computer scientists are welcome to follow along. Who knows, maybe something will interest you. Yeah, so why do you need a text editor? So you need a text editor if you're writing scripts in a programming language and you want to save those scripts and use the convenience the editor affords working with those scripts, the application that runs them, and the editor. Most text editors can interact with applications on your computer, which allows you to use applications, even a browser, from within your editor, and therefore you can access your familiar customized keys and useful pieces of code. So why Emacs? There are a lot of editors out there. There's Vim, Komodo. You can use modern software development applications like Visual Basic for Microsoft, or R Studio for R, which has great graphical compatibilities. So, you know, Emacs. So why Emacs? Emacs is in fact ridiculously old. It has a flat learning curve where knowledge is on the dependent axis and time on the independent axis. So it can take a few years to get used to Emacs before Emacs starts to improve your productivity. On the other hand, Emacs is customizable, and there are a lot of online resources and customized Lisp code that you can tack onto Emacs via packages. This makes Emacs extremely cool, especially once you get through the first few years. So how to install Emacs? So here's a link where you can install Emacs. This installation, you can just click on it. It'll install like a regular piece of software. You don't have to install it from the source code. It comes with an R package, or ES, Emacs Speaks Statistics package, and some other packages that are convenient for academics. So this is in its current version of Emacs. Below that, here is the URL for the R project.org, where you can get an R installation. R is a package for data science, for working with data. For statistics, the Emacs Speaks Statistics package allows you to work with R through Emacs, so you don't have to use the graphical user interface that comes with R, and you don't have to use RStudio, although RStudio is probably recommended, but Emacs is also you know, sufficient, and it has a lot of other advantages because it's a fully functional text editor. So there's that, and then here we have a link to a useful Emacs initialization file, one of many. When you're setting up your initialization file for Emacs, you're going to want to look online for pieces of Lisp code and other initialization files and combine them to come up with the type of installation that you want to use. So here's one that I used as an input to my initialization file. There's a lot of them, as I said, and they're nifty. So you can install Emacs with this application, with this file that you can download from this link. You can also copy and paste Emacs from somebody else's installation. You don't have to install it. You can just paste it right off of the C drive into the directory that you want it to be in. In this way, you can take your Emacs installation and just copy it on a zip drive and put it onto another computer. So that should be very simple and easy. We can see inside the directory there is the .emacs file. This is the initialization file that I was talking about. So this initialization file, when Emacs loads, when a software application loads, it typically will load a lot of functions, assign a lot of variables for various namespaces and environments so that you can do the things that you want to do with the application. Um, Emacs allows you to customize or wants you to customize some of those functions. The .emacs file is one of those functions that allows you to customize, so you can get the application to look the way you want it to look, and you can get the various functions to work the way that you want them to work when you're working in different modes. So this initialization file can be really small and it can be really large, depending on how many customizations you want to make to your Emacs application. In the case of this application, there are a lot of customizations, which would make the initialization file really large. So the initialization file has been filled with mostly references to other files, and those are in the settings folder up here. So this file here will refer to this file, and as this file is compiling, if necessary, it will compile some files in here. In other cases, when a certain function is run within Emacs, it will go here and compile that file at that time. So this cuts down the size of the initialization file. You can see there are quite a number of files in this folder there. So another file that's interesting is this file here, this ELPA file, which has the packages in it, the ones that are installed in this directory. These packages are the sort of unique ways that you can customize Emacs. You find these on the online repository. You can find another tutorial that will tell you, how to access those packages, list the packages and update them. But one thing I can show you is inside the package, there'll be some files in there in the directory. You probably want to read this file. It will tell you sort of how to use the package, and it will show you the actual code that's on the package, and it will tell you how you want to customize your initialization file so that it works with that package. So what we can do now is turn Emacs on and have a look through the initialization file. So Emacs, it loads depending on how large your initialization file is, and if there are any errors, it can load slowly. In this case, there are some errors with one of the packages. I think it's snippet, so it's loading slowly. But here it's loaded, and just adjust it to fit the frame. So we can see okay, so what we're looking at here is called a frame. In Windows, it's called a window. Inside of the frame is a buffer. Actually, inside of the frame is a window. Inside of the window is a buffer. We can actually have two windows in this frame that have the same buffer in them. If I go over here, I can open up a different buffer. This is a complete separate buffer. Then I can basically close the frame, but that other buffer is still open. We can see when we look at buffers, there it is. So that's sort of the difference between a buffer and a window and a frame. At the bottom of this frame, we can see what's called the mini buffer. You can see down here, this is the mini buffer. And the mini buffer is the buffer that you use to interact with the other buffers. It's like a command line. And this line here has some information for you. It shows you what the name of the buffer is. Here you can see where you are, your column and row. And here you can see the major mode. This is a list of interaction. So a major mode is a set of functions and key bindings that works when you're working with a particular type of file or when you're trying to do a particular type of job. To each major mode, there are some minor modes you can attach. These are various minor modes that are attached to this major mode. So we can look at the initialization file, and we can see kind of how initialization file works. This is all written in Emacs Lisp. You can see the syntax here. These semicolons are a comment. This line of code, line 22, at the end of this code there's no semicolon. That's a part of the syntax. Emacs Lisp is basically has a lot of lists in it. Here you see add to list. This is a function. The list that we're adding to is called load path, and the object we're adding to the list is this object in quotation marks here, which is a directory to this, an address to a directory that we're adding to the load path. So in the beginning of the initialization file, you can add some dependencies to your load path, and you can let Emacs know which directories you want it to look into. So when it goes looking for a particular file, for example, this appearance file, on this line of code here, line 39, it says require appearance. Emacs will go through all of the lists, all of the paths in this load path list, and it will look for a file called appearance. So that's something we want to know. We also want to add some execution files. Specifically, if we want Emacs to work with an application, Emacs will need to know where that application is on the computer. This is something, if you're taking your initialization file and you're moving it from one computer to another computer, you might need to come back to this file to add another directory so that to the list, so that Emacs will know where to find that application. So after we set up the dependencies, we can do some stuff with the appearance. There's a separate file here for customizations. Customizations can be in the initialization file, or you can put them in a separate file, as has been done here. These customizations are typically customizations to the appearance, to the font, things like that. This appearance file is actually located in the settings file, and we can look in it here, and what it does is it tells us some stuff about how we want Emacs to appear. For example, with no start up a splash screen, this set of filing, this piece of code here tells us to put the directory that we're currently in on top of the frame. There are some other things we can do with the appearance. When Emacs loads up, we can set the default frame height and width to the height and preferred height and width. So an example of what you can do with the appearance is after you've done the dependencies, you can typically put in your initialization file some customizations for the appearance. So you'll want to have a section of your initialization file reserved for how Emacs interacts with packages, where it gets those packages. When you look online for Emacs tutorials, you'll find some stuff about setting up packages that will tell you how you can give Emacs the address to Melpa, an online repository, and you can put those in the setup package file. So Emacs knows where to get packages and where to put the packages. This line of code here runs through this list and checks to see if Emacs has all of these packages in your package directory. If it doesn't have it, it will go to Melpa and try and load these packages. What that means is that you can take this initialization file and some bare bones Emacs files to a separate computer which already has an installation of Emacs, and you can use this initialization file instead of the initialization file that computer has on it, and it will go and load all the packages that you want to use for your customized installation of Emacs for that particular instance. So it's quite useful. So after we set up those packages, we can look at extensions. So after Emacs loads any one of these modes, it will require this file, which has some customizations to how that mode works. So that's something that you can do here and here. These ones are deferred. They only come, they're only compiled after when you need to use this mode. When you're using this JavaScript 2 mode, at that time Emacs will search for this and require it. But if you run an instance of Emacs and you don't use the JavaScript 2 mode or the web mode or the markdown mode, Emacs won't go to this file and compile it. So these files that are deferred are not being initialized. These ones down here are being initialized, so they autocomplete and the YAS snippet, and in this case the HTML. I was doing some HTML before, so this one didn't need to be deferred. It could have been, but the ESS I'm using a lot, so that's something that's not deferred. So basically, here we've got some more references to some default functions and some mode mappings and some miscellaneous functions. So all of these are customizations that you can do to Emacs. What we'll do is we'll take a look at this key bindings file. It will sort of show you some of the things that you can do with Emacs. You can see, so kill this buffer. So we had opened a buffer in the beginning of the session and we hadn't closed it. We can look, that was the bugs buffer. So if we go to that buffer right now and hit Control X, Control K, it will kill that buffer. The bugs buffer, if we were to refresh this page, it would no longer be on here. So now when we go to the buffer, there'll be no bugs buffer because we killed that buffer. So that was something that occurred with this function, this key binding here. Go to line is a key binding we can use. We can go to line 60 and then come back to line 44 after that. It's one way that we can get around. So there's other ways we can get around. We can to the top, to the bottom. We can move sort of quickly, and we can move slowly. We can move to the end of the line and the beginning of the line. There's some various ways that we can get around. Smart Meta X is a package that you can use that will, when you use the Meta X, which is the Alt X, it opens in the mini buffer a list of recent modes, for example, or excuse me, recent functions that you might want to use. Here we have, the load theme. So load theme, we can change the theme, and then we can find. So there we've changed sort of the look. That's something that's convenient to use. It's another shortcut. Yeah, so there's a lot of great shortcuts we can do. This kill to the beginning of a line is another shortcut that we can do. We can put in a line of gobbledygook, and when we're at the end of that line of gobbledygook and we want to get rid of it, we can, excuse me, get rid of it. And so that's convenient. So this gives you an idea of what it is that we're doing with Emacs. You want to, first of all, if you want a text editor, you can, which is recommended for doing programming. Emacs is a great one because it's customizable and you can use it to work with a lot of different applications. And so, for example, if you're working with R, you can work with R directly through Emacs, and there's a lot that you can do with it. R has lots of packages, and Emacs has a lot of packages as well, so the combination of the two is really good. Once you get your Emacs installation, and I showed you where you can get it, you can get the Emacs installation here. There are some customizations that you can do on Emacs. You'll want to look online to find how you can do those customizations in terms of putting packages on Emacs. And once you have Emacs installed, yeah, you'll want to customize your initialization file, which is this file that we're looking at right here. It's called your .emacs file, and it is in your Emacs directory. So with that .emacs file, you can defer a lot of parts of that initialization file so that they load a little bit later, or don't load at all if they're not required. So that's a bit orthogonal. It's more efficient. way of setting up your initialization file. And then there are a lot of things that you can do with Emacs. For example, you can read the news. This function here is an example of one of so many functions that you can find in Emacs that allow you to look around. You can see that Yahoo has recently had a huge data breach. There are some comments there, that particular feed. Hitting that button, Emacs will then go and communicate with your default browser, and it will find that news file for you. So that's another example of how you can work with other applications on your computer from within your text editor, which is one of the things that makes your text editor so fantastic. Okay, so that's a sort of introduction of Emacs. The main thing I wanted to show you with this video was how it is that I'm interacting with R. I'm interacting with R through Emacs Speak Statistics. This way, if you look at any upcoming videos that have to do with data science or programming R, or sort of other various program-related topics, you'll recognize the graphical user interface that I'm using to interact with those applications. You'll know where you can get it. You'll know why the shortcuts are there, and how you can get those shortcuts yourself by using a customized initialization file. So I hope you learned something from this video, and if you did, there's no, you can't comment on this section, but you can watch any other upcoming videos. Okay, thanks for watching.